Well, we're getting towards the end of my 2020 hike season hike logs. So this is the first hike, the first videographed hike from my 2020 season. Steinbeck and I in early June went out to the Wheeler Lakes near Frisco, Colorado. My assumption was it's June 2nd. I'm sure there'll be maybe a hint of snow, but I'm guessing the trail's going to be pretty clear. So, in the list of things I've said in my life that are wrong, that's fairly high on the list. So, yeah, there was a lot of snow on this trail. In fact, when I got to the first Wheeler Lake, I didn't even bother trying for the second one because I wasn't sure where the lake actually ended, and I was quite afraid of falling through the ice if I walked onto it. So I tried to be pretty conservative about that. But in a lot of places, the snow was still around 2.5 to 3 feet deep, including at the lakes themselves. So we're going to see a lot of that and a lot of post-holing. And I apologize up front for the shaky cam because this was before I got the gimbal. And that's a big part of why this video is going to be very short, coming in at just about 8 minutes and 15 seconds. I also thought that it would be fun to pair this with my last hike of the season, Ptarmigan Lake, which was in mid-September of last year, before getting into the two big marquee hike videos that are going to come out next week, for those of you watching this when it's released, the Mount Elbert and DeCalibron hikes. So Wheeler Lakes also has the distinction of being the only hike I've ever done where photos that I took of the hike, and these were photos I took using the Nikon D1 of all things, were used in an online article from was it Out There, Colorado, or the Denver Post? I forget which. The author was supposed to send me a link to use in this video and forgot. So at any rate, I don't have a link to that article, but 2 of my Nikon D1 photos ended up in that article. So that was pretty neat. The Wheeler Lakes hike is short and sweet, and there's not really a huge challenge unless there's, knee-deep snow, then it gets kind of hard. It's also very pleasant. It starts off next to I-70. Literally, the trailhead is at a rest area on I-70 right here. And so the trail walks alongside parallel to I-70, and it's incredibly noisy. And then it veers right at the exit for, is that Highway 9 there? I think so. Don't quote me on that. That sounds correct. I think it's the road to Leadville. So it veers right the opposite direction of this exit. And then there's the road traffic of the road going north. And I forget which highway that is. It's not one of the interstates. But it's quieter, but still fairly noisy. So at any rate, that lasts for a little while, and then getting up into the mountains, say right around here, maybe a little bit earlier, that road noise starts to fade away, and the trees do a good job of absorbing it, and then it transitions from the aspen forest we saw earlier to this alpine forest as the elevation increases. And on a summer day, this would be a magnificent hike. In the autumn, when the leaves are changing, this would also be an absolutely magnificent hike. On June 2nd, when there's still 3 to 4 feet of snow, and it is just warm enough that layer of packed crust on top is not quite strong enough to hold a full-grown person and their backpack up. It's not quite as much fun. So, in fact, the boots I was wearing here actually broke on this hike. So, because in one of these snowbanks, I don't remember if it was this one or another one, Steinbeck lunged at something, I don't know what, and it twisted me around and I fell, but I had already post-holed and my boot was trapped in the snow, so I'm actually really pretty lucky that I didn't break my ankle, if I'm honest. And what happened was it pulled on the boot and one of the eyelet rivets just popped right out. I was able, fortunately, the rivet wasn't damaged, it hadn't broken, but it looked like it hadn't really been mushroomed very well. So fortunately, the Salomon, the company who made those boots, replaced them. They were only a few months old, and they said, yeah, okay, that shouldn't happen. Here's another pair. It was very cool of them, and it helps that I love their boots. They did not pay for that mention, by the way. I just love their boots and wear them on my hikes.
Whoa, dear.
This trail has very nice views where there aren't trees. And even in the forest, it's a very pleasant forest to walk. Oh, look at that post hole. Up to my knee. It is, when there's no snow, it's a very pleasant trail. Like this. This is wonderful. If the whole trail had been like this, if I had done this hike in July, I think it would have been absolutely magnificent the whole way. And then there's this meadow, and there are some other places like this where the scenes are just spectacular. But even with all the snow, June is still the beginning of wildflower season, and there were a handful of them that had started to come out. But this is a fairly high elevation, and it is in the mountains, and it is a little bit north of, what's maybe west-northwest of Denver. And in this part of the mountains, the snow stays pretty late, and that's why here it is June in this video, and the snow was still there. You could see even in some of the backgrounds of these photos that a few of the ski runs still had snow on them. Now, I can't tell you if that was because it was manufactured snow or if it was left over from the ski season. It didn't look like they were being used for skiing at this point. But in 2020, fun fact, the highest elevation ski runs in Colorado, I forget the name of them, they're up off Loveland Pass. They're around 13,000 feet. They start well above tree line. When I was out at Loveland Pass on the first day of summer 2020, June 21st, there were people skiing on those runs. It was the last day of ski season, but ski season runs pretty late here. So all of that aside, because I've done basically no chit-chat about the hike, here we are at Wheeler Lakes. This is the destination of the hike, and the deepest, absolutely the deepest snow of the hike. It was waist deep in a couple of places and not easy to get out of a couple of times. So with that, let's take a look at some of the stills from the hike, which most of these will have been taken with the A7S II, a handful with the Nikon D1. Not a whole lot of fancy photo editing in this batch, just some shots of the scenery. So at any rate, that is my Wheeler Lakes hike log. I do hope that you enjoyed this brief little look into the hills or mountains around Frisco, Colorado, and a little glimpse of what Colorado's mountains are like in June, almost in the summer. Have a good day, everybody, and I'll see you in the next hike log.